Story 1. Am I the a-hole for asking my brother to pay $30,000 for my engagement ring? I hosted a family dinner over the weekend. My brother brought my nephews, 4 and 8, over as well. I used to wear my engagement ring all the time, but lately I keep it in my walk-in closet and mainly wear it for special occasions. While I was cleaning up the dinner table, my nephews went to go play while the adults were still in the outdoor patio, outdoor kitchen area. My brother was not supervising his kids. During this time, my nephews went into the master bedroom without anyone knowing and started playing with everything, including my engagement ring. When we came to look for them, they panicked because they knew they weren't supposed to be upstairs, ran into the master bathroom, and flushed my ring. We called a plumber in case it was somehow in the U-trap of the toilet and not actually gone, but nope. Unfortunately, it was gone for good. We still had the original receipt, so I called my brother. I emailed him a scanned copy as proof of the cost and asked him to reimburse me for the ring my nephew flushed. Immediately, he started calling me an a-hole because we were family and he was just a child. He has refused to repay the cost of my ring. I told him I'll be taking him to court for this, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone saying families shouldn't sue each other and just let it go. Families shouldn't also play with other people's things when they've been told that's not where they're supposed to go. Really entitled. I mean, $30,000 is a big chunk. At least part of it or something. Are they expecting the fiancé to pay for another $30,000 engagement ring? No, they need to accept some responsibility for their kids too and start watching them. Story 2. I purposely farted in front of a guy at the gym because he wouldn't take no for an answer. So a few things. I go to the gym to work out and decompress. I don't see it as a place to be social. I wear large over-ear headphones. I was at the gym and just finished one of my sets for deadlifts when a guy walks over. This is something I'm used to, despite how much I dislike it, and he starts talking to me, and I'm able to pick up on his flirting. I'm polite and waiting for the proper moment to end the conversation. When he asks for my number, I decline. He keeps talking and going into the usual shtick of, "Why not?" and "Come on." At that point, I'm very uncomfortable and also annoyed because my workout timer has already gone off and it's past time for me to start my next set. I put on my big girl pants and tell him he's making me uncomfortable and I just want to finish my workout. Does he leave? No. He keeps talking now, going on about how he didn't mean it like that and he's not a bad guy. No actual apology to be found. Now, during this entire interaction, I've had to fart. I was being polite and holding it in until he left, but seeing as he's not, I think, well, I know a way to get him to leave. As he's still talking, I let it go. It's silent but rather smelly. It only takes about 2 seconds for him to catch a whiff. He stops talking, and the face he makes is so much that I have to bite my lip to stop laughing. That's when he gave me a look of, "Are you serious?" and then finally leaves, and I'm left alone to finish my workout. Yeah, I think we just all need to leave each other alone at the gym, or just me, I just walk a bunch of miles during the day as my workout. But yeah, I can understand when someone doesn't want to leave you alone. This is happening to everybody. It's not just women. There's guys, too, that are being told, they're told they're, being accused of stuff by girls. It's all, I don't know. I mean, I guess just invest in some home gym equipment and really get that workout to yourself. Story 3. 2 malicious compliances equals 1 pro-revenge. Several years ago, Barry, my boss, did a job for Big Daddy Construction and got hosed. It wasn't a huge amount of money, couple of $1,000s, but hosed is hosed. Basically, he accepted Big Daddy's word on something that they denied later. Barry consulted his lawyer and was told that since the issue was not in writing, that any legal action was likely to fail, and even if he won, that the legal costs would exceed any settlement. And Big Daddy basically said, "My lawyer can beat up your lawyer." Barry then asked what every lawyer likes to hear. "What should I have done differently?" Fast forward to 2017. Big Daddy is soliciting bids for a new restaurant called Fiancé. Barry submits a bid for supplying and installing door hardware. Things like doorknobs, emergency exit bars, door closers that pull the door shut, and 3 automatic door openers, ADOs. An ADO is something you've seen before. It has a metal plate with a wheelchair logo mounted on the wall. When you press it, a motor opens the door. It's designed to allow people with limited mobility to pass through a doorway. Barry wins the bid and calls a meeting. He is handling this job personally. All communication with Big Daddy is to go through Barry and only Barry. If someone from Big Daddy calls and says, "Nice weather, isn't it?" we are to reply, "I wouldn't know anything about that. Let me transfer you to Barry's line." Under no circumstances is anyone from Big Daddy to be given Barry's cell number. And the after-hours on-call texts are only to return the call and say that Barry will be in touch in the morning. Violation of any of this will be grounds for immediate dismissal for cause. Is that perfectly clear? A few weeks go by, and we get a call from GC, who not only is running the job for Big Daddy, but is Big Daddy's son. He's an entitled smegball of a tyrant, with anger issues and a vocabulary that relies heavily on profanity. I'm calling him GC because that's his job title, General Contractor. For those who don't know, a general contractor is responsible for ensuring that everything gets done on a construction site in the correct order. For example, if you're building a bathroom, first you put up the wall studs, then the electrical is run, and the plumbing supply lines are roughed in. Next, the drywall goes up, then the tile and the baseboards. The walls, ceiling, and trim get painted. Then the cabinets, light fixtures, and switches are installed. Lastly, the plumbing fixtures go in. So as you can see, a GC has to deal with several different subcontractors and coordinate their efforts. It's a stressful job, and you need the cooperation of various people. And it's hard to get people to work with you if you're screaming swear words at them, something GC never figured out. There are 3 ADOs to be installed, 2 on the entrance and 1 on the handicapped washroom. The conventional washrooms are down a set of stairs on the right, and by law, there has to be a washroom available for people using wheelchairs, marked as HC on the drawing. This is on a bit of corridor of sorts used by the servers to bring food in and dishes out. The partitions separating the corridor are about shoulder high, separating the corridor from the seating area, which is what these circles with 4 chairs represents. These are tables, booths, etc., with a smattering of service stands for order entry and bits and pieces like extra cutlery. The decor was fancy and meant to resemble a Victorian gentleman's club, with oak throughout and thick carpets on the floors. Worthy of mention is the feature wall at the front, with alcoves for displaying sculptures and places to hang paintings. So, GC calls us, and they're ready for the ADOs. We arrive and install. By the terms of the bid, it's Big Daddy's responsibility to supply dedicated 120-volt electricity for the ADOs and to run the 12-volt wires from the activation plates to the top of the doorway so they can be connected to the circuit board for the ADO. This wasn't present at the time of the install, so he ran an extension cord to power the ADO and used a wireless transmitter and receiver to trigger it. All of this was specified in the bid, which said that we could install and then return to hook up the wires once they get run. Barry came in and supervised the tech installing the ADOs personally. When GC signed off, buried in the description was a line or 2 referencing the relevant sections of the bid. When GC signed off on the handicapped washroom install, there was a line noting that Big Daddy assumes all responsibility for compliance with the relevant building code section. GC didn't bother to read what he was signing, just scribbled a signature and took his copy. Barry made certain the tech was right beside him when GC signed off. Malicious compliance number 1. It's about 2 weeks before opening, and they're in the finishing stages. Barry gets a frantic call from GC that none of the ADOs are working, and they need these to be functional, or they won't get their occupancy permit. Barry heads down the next day with the tech. Barry: well, I found the problem. GC: so fix the fracking problem. Barry: there's no 120 volts run to the doors, and there's no 12-volt wires to hook up the buttons. GC: you didn't run the power? Why didn't you run the power? Barry: it's not in the scope of work in the bid. You're supposed to do that. GC: why didn't you tell me that when you were here the first time? Barry: I did, and you signed off on it. GC: where's the fracking electrician? Electrician, get your butt over here. Electrician: what's up? GC: why isn't there any power for these door operators? Electrician: it's not part of the scope of work. Barry: there's some good news. GC: what? Barry: if we use wireless for the buttons, we won't need 12-volt wires. I'll have to bill you for it as an add-on, but once you get me the 120 volts, these ADOs will be working. Now, GC realizes how fracked he is. The interior of the restaurant is 90% complete, and there is no power to a critical part of the building. Without it, no permit. Big Daddy has fracked up big time, assuming that either Barry or the electrician would run the wires, and not putting it into the scope of either bid. The electrical panel is in the back of the kitchen, and there's no way to bring 120 volts to the front entrance, except across the ceiling, which would be nearly impossible. All of the lighting and the ornate false ceiling was already in. Even if he was able to magically do that, he would either have to run a metal conduit down the surface of the feature wall or rip out a good chunk of it, ruining the wires, run the wires, and reinstall it. The handicapped washroom ADO wasn't as much of a problem since it was closer and the wires could be run through the false ceiling. The section that contained the handicapped washroom also had offices and storage with a T-bar ceiling, unlike the main room, which had 20-foot ceilings. The electrician charged GC big dollars for the extra work. Malicious compliance number 2. Remember the handicapped washroom? When the building inspector came to do a pre-check, they discovered that the square footage of the washroom, minus the area taken up by the in-swinging door, was less than the required minimum. They needed a quick fix, as dismantling the washroom, moving a wall, and relocating the plumbing fixtures would be too expensive and would take too long. So GC decided to reverse the swing of the door and have it swing into the corridor rather than into the washroom. This had a really bad effect on the operation of the flow of servers in and out of the kitchen. And people are lazy. Even able-bodied people were prone to using this washroom as it was the closest. I don't know what the conversations between Fancy Butt and Big Daddy were like, but I imagine they were pretty intense. But who gives a frack? GC signed off on that too. And Barry got to invoice for a whole new ADO, as the original was a pull style, and reversing the swing meant that a push style was required.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Pro Revenge. GC called a few days after discovering that the entrance doors needed 120 volts to tell Barry that the 120 volts was available. Barry heads down with the tech to check it out. In the vestibule was a heater known as an air curtain. It's a big heater designed to push a high volume of warmed air into the vestibule to mitigate cold outside air entering the restaurant. It pulls a significant amount of electricity every time it kicks on, and GC had tied the 120 volts for the entrance doors ADOs into the same circuit. Barry explains that the bid specified that the ADOs required their own dedicated circuits, one for each. GC responded that he doesn't give a smeg. Hook up the deity damn things, so Barry does, and has GC sign off again. Only this time, buried in the sign-off sheet is an acknowledgement that by not providing dedicated circuits, all warranties are void, and subsequent service would be billable. Just like usual, JC scribbles his signature and takes his copy without reading it. These ADOs are finicky about power. There's a motor, obviously, controlled by a circuit board that determines how fast the doors open, how long it stays open, how fast it closes, how much force is used, that sort of thing. If it takes a spike in power, it fails, and the ADO no longer functions. A power spike blows a fuse and damages one of the components on the control board. This is replaceable, and the part is worth about $30. The control board can be fixed in about half an hour, with another half hour on a scope to make certain everything is good. Barry had sent one of the techs to the manufacturer to be certified in rebuilding the board, even though our standard was just to ship them back to the manufacturer and get a replacement. Sure enough, a couple of days later, GC calls in a panic. They have the final occupancy inspection scheduled for the next day, and one of the ADOs at the entrance is down. GC, your fracking ADO isn't working. Get down here and fix it. Barry, okay, but this isn't covered under warranty. It's billable. GC, what the frack are you talking about? It's not even been a week and it's broken. It's a warranty. Barry, no. Warranties were all voided when you didn't provide clean power. GC, frack that. Get down here and put in a new ADO. Barry, it doesn't need a new ADO. It needs a new control board. And I can get a new control board from the manufacturer in 4 to 6 weeks. GC loses his mind. There's no way he can delay the opening of a fancy butt for 6 weeks waiting for a part. He calls Barry every name in the book, threatens legal action, etc. Barry responds, look, GC, I have a control board on the shelf that was rebuilt by a factory-certified technician. I can let you have it at 80% of the list price of a new one, and I can have it installed by noon tomorrow. Do you want the rebuilt or the new part? And do you agree that this is billable as per the terms of the bid? GC, yes, just get the fracking thing fixed by tomorrow. Now, Barry knows that GC and Big Daddy were going to frack him up just like they did years ago. That ended up being a I never said that dispute. What GC didn't know was every time he called Barry, the call was recorded. You know this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes that you get when you dial in? Well, Barry never used his cell phone, never initiated a call, and every time GC called it in, it was recorded and archived. Every single time. Sure enough, another couple of days go by, and an ADO goes down again. Barry asks if GC is good with the rebuild, gets confirmation, removes the blown part, installs the rebuild, then takes the blown control board back to the shop and rebuilds it. A new control board is $750. The rebuild he's charging is $600 for a part that maybe costs $75 to get back into shape. The bid specified that non-warranty service was $125 an hour minimum 4 hours. So tack on another $500 for labor, and it takes maybe 45 minutes to install a new control board and dial it in. So every control board replacement was generating $1,100. There were 27 blown control board swaps in the first 2 months. GC called in every one of them, and Barry got his verbal approval. If someone from Fancy Butt called in, we gave them GC's number and said that we could only come and fix it if JC was the one to call it in. Then Barry gets a call from Daddy, Big Daddy, wanting to know what this invoice for almost 30 grand is for. Barry explains, and a meeting is called. Barry brings his lawyer and all copies of the sign-off sheets, as well as transcripts from every conversation he had with GC. It becomes very apparent that GC messed up large, and that Barry had every I dotted and every T crossed. Big Daddy is glaring daggers at GC and basically tells Barry that if he wants to get paid, he's going to have to sue for the money. Barry smiles and slides his ace across the table. It's a contractor's lien against Big Daddy, Fancy Butt Restaurant, and Massive Realty Company, the owners of the building. Here's the thing. Fancy Butt was owned by an internationally famous chef, IFC, who makes his living getting very important people to invest in opening a new restaurant. This is a place where they go to be very important and bring their business contacts with them. After a short time, when the restaurant is the happening place in town, the investors sell the place and cash out large. IFC sticks around, helps with the transition, and makes a percentage of the restaurant's profits for the use of his name. He's built an income stream with the investors' money, and the investors make a nice return. Only now they can't sell, with a lien on the place. And these investors have rabid fracking pit bulls as lawyers. Hell, some of them are lawyers. See you in court, Big Daddy. Only now, you're not facing Barry's lawyer, you're facing a whole new level of legal expertise. Have fun with that. Barry got his revenge, and then withdrew service based on the disputed invoice. He's the only company allowed to service and install this brand of ADO, as has been a protected territory, as he has a protected territory from the manufacturer, as does 7 figures worth of business with them a year. The only other companies anywhere nearby were warned off by the manufacturer, who even relayed the fact that Big Daddy had called them directly looking for service, and they referred Big Daddy to Barry. Barry will definitely get paid, as it's a standard to hold back 10% of the payment to a construction company for a year, and the holdback will definitely cover the invoice. So Fancy Butt will pay Barry and then take it out of Big Daddy's holdback. Either that, or they will sue Big Daddy into dust and force Big Daddy to cough up and settle the lien. Who knows what company Big Daddy picked up to cover the ADOs? Barry has friends in the industry and warned them all off. But there are a-hole competitors, and Barry didn't say a thing to them. Maybe Big Daddy is working over one of the competition, and what hurts his competition helps Barry. What makes this deliciously pro? You think maybe, just maybe, Barry, who has decades of experience in the industry, might have had an electrician friend that could show him the electrical bid, and that maybe Barry knew from the beginning that there was no provision for 120 volts in either package, or that the washroom was too small, or that GC, a corner cutter, would take the easy way out and hook the ADOs into the air curtain. Way to go, Barry. Nicely played. This is another one of those epic things that looks like it, that sounds like it could be made into a movie, just with this awful person who just thinks they know everything, who really beat down the little guy, and the little guy completely learned and planned his revenge. So, great job, and really great to explain everything so we know a little bit about the terms and how the story would go. I mean, really detailed, just... Story 4. Apparently, I made my mom cry every Mother's Day throughout my childhood. Throughout my childhood, from when I started school to about age 18, I would ask my mom what she wanted for Mother's Day. And every year she would say very clearly, "Nothing. You don't need to get me anything at all." And so I didn't, because I was a child, and she was my mom, and I believed what she said. In my teens, I just assumed it wasn't something she felt was important. I'm an only child, and my lovely dad, who lived with us, wasn't one for social conventions and didn't intervene. I'm not sure why, but aged 18, I started buying her a Mother's Day card and present, which always went down well with her. After I had my own son, my mom decided to tell me that every Mother's Day that she didn't receive a present, she would hide away and cry because I hadn't bought her anything, and that Everyone else has a lovely present and card except her. What's going on here? I'm 48 now and still feel weird about both her not telling me, the child-aged me, that she'd like some flowers or whatever, and also that she told the adult-aged me about how I'd made her cry each year. Yeah, that's not something you put on a child. You need to be specific. You need to tell her. I mean, if you wanted something. The dad didn't intervene. How is a kid going to figure this out? How is a kid going to figure out that the mom, who is supposed to be probably one of the biggest people in the world that they trust, is saying something but means something else? And it's such a guilt trip to place on a woman now. Yeesh.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.